Brad, Sham on the Diamond Factory hotline here on Shan and RJ. Good morning. How much sleep did you get?
A couple hours. It was probably, we were on the ground at 2:30, but had work to do when I got home, and I think it was probably after 5 when I got to sleep.
Was that the best game you've seen Dak ever play?
I think so. I'd have to go back to 2016, and I don't remember the specifics of all of those, but there were certainly some in that rookie year. Pittsburgh, Green Bay, there were some of those that were really good. But I just can't think of anything he did wrong. First couple series was the way I said it during the game, because the Buccaneers were terrible too, that the game was over caffeinated for a while. And it just needed to settle down. And I think for the Cowboys, the completion to Gallup on the sideline, and then the roughing the passer, and then it kind of seemed to settle down a little bit. And Sean, I just can't think of anything that he really did wrong. The decisions seemed really good, and obviously he threw the ball with great accuracy and very much in command. His running decisions were good. I just think it's as close to a perfect game as a guy's going to play.
Did the receivers seem like they were more open yesterday than they had been in recent games?
Nah, I don't know. Maybe a couple of times. Lamb didn't get that much. He didn't get that much activity. Hilton was. Look, RJ. I think the fact that he used the tight ends is part of it. Mm-hmm. You didn't see him trying to force the ball into Noah Brown, who has, I think, difficulty getting separation. Obviously, they had a coverage bust on Lamb's touchdown, so you almost don't want to count that. But now, once he got into a rhythm, he certainly seemed to be finding guys with greater regularity. But I think it might have been route decisions and the receivers to whom he was throwing that made it look that way.
So look, this is just it's just a buffet of glory, really. So you just pick and choose what you want. We've already covered Dak. Who else or what else really jumped out to you last night?
The offensive line obviously was really good, and I think that particularly McGovern and Tyler Smith are due mention for changing on the fly. It's not that they did something after Peters got hurt that they weren't used to or couldn't do, but they hadn't practiced it. And so that Zach Martin was really good. I thought Tyron was really good, and the tight ends clearly were very much on their game. And you can just kind of go up and down the defense. You mentioned Parsons and Armstrong. Thought Hankins and Van Der Esch made a difference. Thought McQuamu, they decided to go with an extra safety, so they went with a kind of a jumbo safety package, knowing that McQuamu, who was a corner in college, could play in the slot. And they wound up doing that a great part of the night, especially after Kearse got hurt. You can just kind of have your pick.
Brad, you mentioned McQuamu there. I know that was something we brought up to you, about 6 weeks ago when we were first trying to figure out this corner spot. Like, did you think they would ever go in the direction of McQuamu? Do you think that his usage last night is more about the matchup, the size that those Tampa receivers have? Or do you think, hey, this is the way we're structuring our secondary moving forward the rest of the way?
Oh, no, 100% the first thing, Bobby. They had been planning. It became apparent, 2 or 3 weeks left, that the greatest likelihood was they were going to wind up playing Tampa, certainly after Tampa beat Carolina in Week 17. And so all of that mixing and matching and different lineup combinations in the secondary they had was designed for them to see who would be their best combinations for the playoffs in general, but I think that they were starting to zero in on this specific matchup. And so it may be you may find a completely different inactive list Sunday in San Francisco, but I think this was somewhat intentional.
Brad Sham here on the Diamond Factory Hotline to recap the big win last night. Van Der Esch led the way with 9 combined tackles. Let's just talk about his importance and how nice it was for that defense to get him back.
Yeah, very important. He's had a great year. And so, as McCarthy himself says, he's the guy who calls the defenses, but he's just recognizing things better than he ever has, and he's not making a number of tackles 8 yards down the field. He's playing within whatever the game plan is, and he adds a lot of strength and stability, and I think you're seeing the combination of range. Remember when he was a rookie and you just looked at how a guy that size could get sideline to sideline and have that much range and power, and then injuries and other player combinations kind of conspired to not allow him to be that player. And I think this year it's been the closest that he's been to the kind of player that he could be. Obviously, Quinn has asked him to do some different things. So what I think he's done, I said this to him when we had him on the Cowboy Hour a week or so ago, I think the most impressive thing about him is that he is able to bring the discipline that 4 or 5 years of experience will give you without sacrificing any of the explosion or the violence that the position requires. And that's not really easy to do. And there's no doubt he is a very important part of making their defense good.
Brad, do you think that this performance was more about the Cowboys' resolve after what happened in D.C., or the Bucs just really not being that good?
Oh, it was about – I think it was mostly about – I mean, obviously I'm a little biased, but I think it was about their resolve. And I think that I think it had less to do with having the resolve because of what happened in D.C. than it did what happened in D.C. happening because they were already from top down in the organization. They were already starting to point toward this game. I mean, that game it didn't matter to them. I don't care what any of them says. They were not trying to win in Washington the way they were trying to win last night. Doesn't mean they didn't want to win. You could probably wire them up to a lie detector, coaches and players, and they would say, no, we were doing the things we thought would win the game. They weren't trying to win that game with schemes, with play calls, with personal communication and effort from the players. They weren't trying to win that game like they were trying to win last night. And I just think that the Washington game was a really unsightly speed bump that they just didn't care about. It's hard for us, it's hard for me to make it kind of go together that you can look that bad and be a good team, and yet you can. That's just the NFL in the 21st century. And I think it was not that they were trying to get over Washington. I just think Washington was something that they had to get through to get to this game.
What do you do with your kicker?
Love him up, pat him on the back, tell him that you support him, and try to act like it never happened, because it's in his head clearly. I'm not starting a caravan now.
Yeah.
Now, I am going to be making a list. If he does it again, then and they were able to win, you've got a real problem. It's just an anomaly. I mean, we've all seen the same guy all year. That's not who he's been. And you could tell after the second one that it was starting to get into his head. So I would just support him, which all of the players were doing in the locker room. By the time I got down there, Sean, there was a circle and a line 6 deep to get to him, and he was standing there talking to everybody, taking every question, to his credit.
Yes.
There are other guys that I tried to talk to who had really good games who just couldn't be bothered last night. and I understand the game's over, they've got family, blah, blah, blah. Maher took every question, and because that's who he is. And so I'm going to let the body of work for the season mean as much as one horrific night. Now, you can't keep doing it, but I'm just going to tell him to have the best week possible and go out and work on his mechanics and talk to the psychologist and be on the plane when it leaves on Saturday.
I just want to know, from a broadcasting point of view, what you were thinking from kick to kick. Have you had similar moments of like disbelief? Like what was the word you would use to describe what you were thinking before and after number 2, number 3, number 4?
Well, no one's ever seen 4.
No one's ever seen 3.
No one's ever seen 3. So that was new ground. And in this case, because the nature of what Babe and Christy and I do, we're following the same team all the time, and therefore we get to know and have some degree of personal relationships with these guys. And I think I know him a little bit, and you just couldn't have a better, more grounded, less selfish guy. They've had kickers through the years who were flighty and difficult to kind of get to know personally, and that's not him. He's just a really centered, grounded guy, a really good human being. So I think that my main thing, and we said it a couple of times, please make this. We just want him to make one. And then he kept not. No one's ever seen anything like that. It just became like this horrible car wreck that you couldn't look away from. And so we'll see. Hopefully the one that he made will give him some muscle memory and remind him that he can still do it. And had they wanted him to kick a long field goal, I would have sent him out there without. Now, I saw a clip on the internet, so I presume everybody else has seen it, where it looks like Dak is entreating them to go for 2, which I think was something you had to consider at some point. Mm-hmm. Had the game been in the balance. Mm-hmm. So, and McCarthy's going to have to decide that through the week. Will there be situations where you maybe under some circumstances would have kicked a 55, 56-yard field goal, which with him you normally wouldn't think about twice. And now maybe you'll think about structuring your play calls to try to go for it. Maybe will there be times that you go for 2, which they don't do very much. They've only tried to go for 2 like 2 or 3 times all year. But there's nothing you can do but drop your jaw and try to describe it, and hope that he is able to get it back and be the guy he's been all year long.
We still doing player shows?
Yes, I don't know who's out. Yes, we're at Cane Rosso tonight, and there are several guys that they're talking to, and it just kind of depends on how they feel and what time they get in and into the complex and what they have to do. But we'll have somebody tonight at Cane Rosso at 6 o'clock.
Who or what do you need to take the L about today?
Nothing.
Okay.
Actually, I do have one thing. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you could be free and clear, but I like this from the 214. All right, Kevin, as your nemesis and troll since the weekend show, I'll admit I was wrong and apologize about Brady this time. They are consistent about that. I appreciate it. But whether it was about Dak, whether it was about this team getting smoked, whatever the case is there something you need to take the L about today in terms of an opinion?
I guess I thought it would be a coin flip yesterday. Obviously, I kept changing my mind. At the end, I gave the Cowboys a close victory, but that wasn't
3
close
points.
enough. Yeah,
right?
I think 27-24 is at the end of the show what I decided. But even yesterday, before the game, I'm like, man, I don't know. I said Cowboys at the end of the show, so I'll stick with a Cowboys close victory. But that wasn't close at all. I was worried about Brady. I mean, I thought this son of a gun is going to somehow, some way play a great game. And I'll say in a 1 minute span, the play where he's getting rushed out to the right side and he flips the ball to the cornerback, Chris Godwin, who decided to play wide receiver yesterday for Tampa Bay. I was like, wow, this son of a gun still is going to put his body on the line, is going to figure out a way how to kind of jab step and kind of flip the ball there to Godwin. And that gets the ball down the 5-yard line. And then a play later, he chucks and ducks for an interception. And I thought, wow, that went from, oh my gosh, Tom Brady, is going to pull off one of these miracle things again nope, he does not want any part of getting hit.
From the 512, I've hated on the quarterback all year. That performance made me eat it. From the 817, I thought they were going to get torched and play like poo. I'm glad they were prepared last night. I think my biggest concern or the biggest L that I would have to take is I did not think the secondary would turn into the pass breakup machine that they were last night. I don't even know what the final number was. I know it was at least 10 or 11, but they were just breaking up passes left and right. And even though Troy Aikman thinks every play ever is pass interference, I thought a lot of it was really great coverage.
Oh God, we need to put Mike Bassick on that hate list. I think, he's taking shots at my Troy Aikman.
There were 2 plays that it was just good coverage, and they're like, oh, he was there early. And I was like, there where? With his arm trying to get the football? He didn't touch that guy. And then obviously the biggest L of the game was Troy Aikman is like, I really don't know about this. You should probably take the 3. And then the Cowboys scored a touchdown. I thought that was amazing.
I was with Troy Aikman because he kind of had to hurry up and say it. And I just thought, dude, go up by 2 scores here. I don't know if they're going to be able to move the ball. Now, it's a great play, and Kellen Moore deserves a lot of credit. I think I'm not taking the L on Kellen Moore because I've been steady on saying I think he's solid. I don't think he's the best. I don't think he's a top 5 play caller in the game, but I think he's solid and good. But I wonder how many people who hate Kellen Moore or think he's the issue or problem would have to say, man, that was a great play calling game. And I think on 4th down, I think they quickly showed McCarthy, right? That's why being at the game can help you. You get to see the interaction on the coaches on the sideline. But it was like McCarthy looked at Kellen Moore and was like, stay on the field. And it was like, I think it was that play. And you got it, Kellen. And Kellen called the perfect play where they weren't ready for that, fake handoff.
I actually thought Kellen Moore might lead the way on this. I could see Dak, but I thought Kellen Moore would be like, hey, sorry that I said you were terrible and would get fired after this game, because I thought he was fantastic yesterday.
Mike, I think you should fess up.
Okay.
You said Dak would throw an interception yesterday.
I guarantee. How come if you say it like Charles Barkley and just act like it, then it ends up being that perfect jinx?
You know what, though? Here's the thing.
I was doing it. I did think he would throw an interception, but I also wanted to do it in Charles Barkley, I guarantee, because usually his guarantees on TNT come playoff time go really wrong.
My son Carter would randomly say, Dad, I hope there's no traffic on your way to work. For 3 months, he nailed it. Every time he said that, no traffic. Then when I told him his streak, he was like, whoa, well, guess what? Back-to-back days, he threw it out there. I was like, bad timing. This isn't good. So, Mike, it might just be pick and choose your options here. But last night was the one. He didn't do it, so nice work. Thank you for guaranteeing that, because that dude was not going to lose last night.
From the 682, I think a lot of people owe Schultz an apology. He may not be Kittle, but he's damn good. Now, Schultz was somebody that you brought up as your X factor, and my goodness, what a hell of a game he had.
Yeah, and I thought the touchdown pass, first, give Dak a lot of credit for seeing them kind of in the back of the end zone, but I thought Schultz worked very hard there, and he came back to the ball. When you're going to throw the ball somewhat across the field, and I know it's not completely across the field, but he's near the sideline, so you are throwing the ball back into traffic. And for Schultz to work that hard and then to come back to the ball to make that look like an easy play, because if he stays in the back of the end zone there and lets the ball come to him, maybe it does get deflected. But he came back and made it look like a really easy play, and Dak made a great throw there, and Schultz worked really hard. And obviously had the play on the sideline where he stayed in bounds and made a great kind of juggling catch. That was another one. So Dalton Schultz had a great game, and don't worry, I have that question coming up in Mike Ask All the Football Questions.
I don't know that it's taking an L here, but they did correct it. The offensive line looked better last night by far compared to what they looked like in Washington.
Yes, 100%. I agree with you.
It was shocking.
Yeah, that was what we were watching. I was like, if they come out and play that kind of game, we're toast.
Early on was totally different, right? The first 2 possessions, didn't Dak get sacked on a 3rd down? And I was like, oh no. And you're just like, but then after the first 2 possessions, everything completely
That's why
changed.
I thought that completion to Gallup, and I was like, oh my gosh, positive yardage? Let's do it.
You know what? I'll take an L on that.
I will too.
Gallup, I just thought throughout this whole season hasn't been able to get open. And yesterday he did.
He was really good in clutch moments for the team. That slant, I think that's one you were talking about, that slant pattern that he ran, and it was a tight window for Dak to throw into, but there was a blitz coming down from the safety. The Cowboys set that whole play up. Like, if you go back and watch, I think Emmanuel Acho did a really good job of this, like, going through this specific play where he gets that. He sees that it's coming. He moves him outside, so the safety has to be the blitzer instead of the corner, and Michael Gallup just beats his guy. And then Michael Gallup, with that touchdown, in my mind, dude never stepped out of bounds. I appreciate that the referees were like, hey, you know what? Just to clarify, if he did step out of bounds, here's what the ruling would have been. I appreciate that, but I don't think Michael Gallup stepped out of bounds. I'll take an L too, because I was very concerned that it was only CeeDee Lamb stepping on the field last night.
From the 214, I have to take the L because I thought Brett Maher got shafted as a Pro Bowler. That's fascinating. I did not anticipate positive to negative L's. Like, I just thought it would be negative to positive L's. I guess if there is one thing, that would be the focus.
Out of almost close to the same game they played against Minnesota. I mean, that was pretty much their best game of the year. And now this one being a do or die game, you rank it over because this one meant so much more than that Minnesota game. Even though there was a lot on the line in that Minnesota game at the time, that is the one crazy thing is now the kicker is such a concern, because if you are in what most playoff games it feels like are a 3 to 7 point type of situation is, oh my gosh. I mean, if Maher lines up in the early or late in the first quarter for a field goal, you're just like, oh my gosh. Like, that will be the most nervous situation early on in that San Francisco game.
And there was a couple of times, or one specific time, where I thought they could have lined up for like a 60-yard field goal. And I was like, well, there's no way in hell. But I thought the most Cowboys thing to do would be for Maher to hit the 60-yard field goal as opposed to missing all of those extra points. But luckily, they're in a position where they just punted the ball. This was another one that I thought was going to come up a lot today from the 214, Van Der Esch. My L from the 214 is on Van Der Esch. He was balling last night. I thought he's played not amazingly, but we always talk about what value do the Cowboys get out of their players versus what they're paying him. I think they've gotten value versus what they're paying Van Der Esch all season long, and I thought he was top-notch yesterday.
I agree with you. So my biggest L is Gallup, because I just didn't think he could get open anymore.
Yeah.
And not like the rest of his career, I had no confidence he could get open for Monday Night Football. What's your biggest L's? Like, just one. Just pick your...
I think my biggest L is there is no way that I thought that this DB crew as a whole could essentially, like, shut down the passing game. And I know, like, if you look at the stats, I know people are like, Brady threw for blah, blah, blah. He had to throw the ball 66 yards because they could not get the ball moving whatsoever. And that interception in the end zone... Gosh, like, I would have to go back and rewatch the game. That felt like the moment where the Cowboys were like, hell no, not today, no chance. I take the L for underestimating this group of DBs. I thought, compared to expectations, they were freaking phenomenal last night.
From the 214, going for it on 4th and 4, L for me saying it was wrong. From the 214, Kevin, when the Cowboys went for it on 4th down at the goal line, that Dak run.
Yes.
Were you y'all all gung-ho, or were you like, oh, just take the points?
I was gung-ho about going for it, but then I had nightmares about the Cincinnati game. And I was like, well, I know we're not going Trevor Lawrence slam dunk it here.
Yeah.
Because, God, that play was so awesome.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence was like, whoop, touchdown. I was having nightmares about some sort of attempt to do that and them running it all the way back. This felt like a game, and I know we talk about this in the past, where you lose this game with field goals. Like, as much as I crap on Tom Brady because I don't like him, my worst nightmare was this game being Cowboys up 27-24 in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes and Brady getting the ball. And so I was like, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Like, they went for that win.
Yeah, man. They definitely said we're not going to let anything. And Mike, you were pointing it out, like, Tom Brady and that team never woke up. They never got into it. They never got their rhythm going. So that was helpful too, because the Cowboys defense was so effective in keeping them from coming alive. I think Troy Aikman, as much as you want to hate on him,
and
as many L's as you're delivering.
You're a big Romo guy. Yeah. You get it.
As many L's as you're delivering to the 3-time Super Bowl champion. He did say one thing last night that really stood out to me, and he was like, he said, everything is being challenged, every throw. And that was the description that like really stood out for me with the defense last night. Was there were moments in the season where you're like, where'd they go? Yeah. But they challenged even passes that were wide open in the middle of the field with no receiver around. It was like Tom Brady just threw it in the middle of the field hoping. There were still people batting it down. And that was an awesome part of last night.
And like, I think everything gets heightened during the game. I don't know if we're going to get to tweets at any point, but that was absolutely one of my tweets as I said, in your face, Troy Aikman, touchdown. Because because I just thought it was in that moment, he was like, I don't know. I think you should take the field goal. And then they scored the touchdown. It was awesome.
And you're like my Ryan Drees friend who's just going to say the Cowboys could have won with any quarterback back then.
I'm not saying that. What does that have to do with the 90s Cowboys? Troy Aikman was an amazing quarterback. I just like that they scored a touchdown.
I don't know. I heard Kevin say
you just said in your face, Troy Aikman.
About that call.
You should have won more if you were better. Isn't that what
I do not believe that at all.
Do we give an L to the Phillies fans that have rated our YouTube page right now and are like talking trash in our YouTube chat? Because like that's just a little bro can't deal with big bro's success. Is that just kind of how it's going right now? They have to say, oh my gosh, we got to go check in on them.
Hey, that's great.
We're just doing our thing.
Hey, all the YouTube Philly fans, hit me up when you have a healthy quarterback. We're the K&C Masterpiece right here on 105.3 The Fan. Coming up
You're
next.
Snapping on everybody.
It's interesting, though, and David Beeler, former Cowboys kicker and USC kicker, is going to be on with Shan RJ tomorrow morning. And I was just listening to Adam Vinatieri, who was on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams, and he was talking about, it's one bad game. And for kickers, obviously, this stuff, because of the confidence and the psychological stuff that goes on with this.
It's like golf.
That's where it's so different to really kind of know, is this going to be something that lingers or not? But he was saying, you don't bail on him. If he's been good for you all year long, it's so deep into the season now where, if there was a better option for you, he'd probably be on a roster. So, no, you stick with him and you just hope that he does work through this, and then maybe in the offseason you readjust. But, gosh, this is a bad time to have to be worrying about this.
Man, that'd be a great story if they do stick with him and he's money next week.
I hope to God that's the case.
Like 6 for 6 on all kicks taken. I know he had to be so ecstatic throughout the whole year. Like, after having this dream in 2019, not going to happen. You go put the work in, you're back. Now you're one of the best kickers in the NFL. You're heading for free agency and like $2 million a year. And now everything is on the line. It's one thing just to have performance anxiety. Anybody can do that on the golf course or in other parts of life. But it's another when financial freedom and generational wealth is on the line. And then on top of that, really the thing that makes it even worse is this is happening on national TV. If it's true or not, it makes you look like a coward. It makes you look like you can't handle the pressure. Mm-hmm. It makes you look like you're caving. And no man wants to look like he's scared or he can't handle the pressure. That's like everything that being a man goes into. And now this is all playing out and it just compounds. And everybody's talking about how bad you feel. And you're like, I don't want to be part of the story. A kicker should never be part of the story. The only way it is if you mess up that bad. And I can't imagine being the guy right now, I guess you go out there and you just continue to kick and kick and kick, but it's like being on the golf practice tee as compared to the first tee when everybody's looking at you and it seems like whatever David Duval could work out in practice rounds, like he was the guy going neck and neck with Tiger like 25 years ago, number 1 in the world, and then he got the yips and he was Dunsky. It's just like, peace out, bro. You're now not even one of the best 100 golfers in the world, and it didn't matter how much he practiced. So hopefully the Cowboys psychologist has a good answer for him this week.
Yeah, and it's a bummer the position that you play as the kicker as well. Like Dak just came off maybe his worst performance ever versus Washington. He got to ease into the game. He's not immediately, hey, throw a touchdown pass right now on the first play. He gets to go through 2 or 3 series where accuracy's not there. Okay, work my way in, and then I can go. Like Brett Maher's just going to step into a moment versus the Niners on Sunday, and it's just here we go. You gotta make the kick right now.
Yeah.
You don't get to build your way up and knock the rust off a little bit, and so that's an extremely difficult spot to be in.
Well, the one thing that it can carry him is he did make the last extra point.
Right.
The last one he took, and that's, if you want anything to kind of hang your hat on. I know you were talking about golf. It reminds me very much of like in 1996, Greg Norman blew a 6-shot lead at the Masters to Nick Faldo. And every shot he hit, you cringed a little more, And I got to the point where Zach and I were watching the game, and I'm like, you got to let him keep kicking. Something good has got to happen from this. And you worry about it because are you compounding the problem? Are you compounding the issues of him continually missing extra points? And so that to me is, but the fact that he made the last one, I'm going to try and build on that one if I'm with Cowboys. I'm just going to say, listen, bad day at the office, like Adam Vinatieri has said, he's made plenty of big kicks in his life. He's won Super Bowl, so I'd kind of trust what he's saying right there. But, yeah, you've got to kind of figure this thing out right now, and I don't know if practicing all week is going to get you to figure that out.
You have to have that golfer's temperament that doesn't get too high and too low. And you can maintain like a robotic approach to things and just trust the process. I wonder if what we're seeing with Maher is that there's just a little bit too much volatility in the energy level and the response to competitive situations.
The one thing that people would say, I know Brad Sham had him on that show that he does, and he was talking about it, and people over at the organization feel like that he's a pretty even-keeled guy.
He seems like it.
That he's not, you had some guys that have been some strange kickers for this organization, but I never got the feeling that people talked about him as being one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean,
last night told the truth on him.
Well, the body of work for the full season shows that he's been a very good kicker for you that you can rely on. So, I mean, obviously last night was horrendous.
Moment got too big.
You think so?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Jerry and Steven know it. That's why they gave the answers that they did today. 972, Gavin at it again with the toxic masculinity. Listen, I didn't make it up. That's just how our world, what it expects of men. We can take everything and be tough and be robotic and just execute. And, that's the reality of it. John Machota here from The Athletic, tweeting a quote from Zach Martin on Dak. Probably gets talked about more than any football player there is right now, said Zach. You can't get him down. He's going to keep swinging. And that's what he did tonight. You couldn't ask for a better makeup for that position than that guy. Dak gets made fun of for the intangibles and, that doesn't matter. Who cares about your high five? And, let's have a more accurate player and all that. But last night showed, I think, that character, that resiliency, that positivity, after that first 2 drives, to be able to calm everything down and then execute your best football game ever. I think that those Dak intangibles showed up big time last night in a way that most other players wouldn't have been able to discover.
Yeah, we talked about getting rid of him yesterday, though, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure did. Yeah, last night could have been a huge turning point in his career.
Yeah,
you go win now. Can you back it up? It's got to be a turning point. It can't be one good win every 5 years. And to put things further into context, you haven't done anything that hasn't been done already. You won a wild card game, right? So let's go win a division game. Let's go get to a conference championship and start knocking these things down. Field Yates here. Micah Parsons last night, 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, 2 pass breakups, 2 quarterback hits, 9 pressures, the second most by any player in a game this season. Parsons himself had 10 back in week 2. He totally wrecked that game. Yeah, Micah Parsons.
Outstanding. Yeah. And we felt like that going into that game that the Buccaneers, with all the shuffling that they were doing on their offensive line, your shuffling was better than their shuffling. They got, with the center coming back and the guard situation for them, you knew you had to attack the tackle. Good for them to having a game plan of understanding and going after this offensive line the way they did.
Yeah, it can't be overstated just how dominant Parsons was last night. Like what a blessing it is to have that guy on our side. And what did Jerry say with them? Micah was dealing out bats to everybody, talking about bring the wood.
That was Dan Quinn?
Dan Quinn.
That was Dan Quinn.
was Dan
Okay,
Quinn.
because of the way I was like, is this Micah doing this? The way I'm hearing
Bring
it,
the
they
wood.
asked him,
Yeah, it was-
I'm
it was
like, dude,
Dan
I love
Quinn.
the idea of Micah bringing a bat into Jerry's
Micah's
office. and
sending
saying,
all the
"Hey,
messages."
We're bringing the wood this week, Jerry. Let's put the team on the back. I'm going to go get as many pressures as everybody else gets. I'll match, is what he
Man,
said.
Brian's listening skills have really rubbed off onto Greg over here.
Yeah. I had to rewind the question because I guess he asked about Quinn and Parsons. Sean did, and so then Jerry just goes, and I'm like, okay, is this Parsons just going crotch first, bringing bats to everybody? Either way, Dan Quinn was a stud last night too.
He was.
I mean, are you kidding me? With the way they were able to avoid really having to depend on Xavier Rhodes on a night where we felt like they were going to have to do it was just
really didn't.
very, very
Yeah.
special.
The secret weapon, Izzy McQuamu. He's been saving him.
So good.
Good for him.
Okay, let's give some love to the rookie, Michael Gelkin here. Morning News. Cowboys rookie Tyler Smith seems to dump a defender like this every game. This time, Bucs linebacker Devin White was on the wrong end, and he posted a video of him just throwing him into the end zone. Youngest player in the building seamlessly kicked outside on a playoff win after the Jason Peters exit. I wasn't sure several times throughout the season if Tyler Smith was going to be a satisfactory lineman or a good lineman. And after watching, last night, I just think it's a matter of time before he starts totally dominating. I think I'm there with you guys now. That was an awesome play.
He was probably relieved that he got moved from guard to tackle.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have to deal with Vita Vea the rest of the day.
That's probably true.
It's like, oh, thank God. I'm sorry, Peters, you got hurt, but oh, geez, what a relief. I get to come out here and block with these guys. Yeah.
And then Rick Goslin. How about this? There was an average of 11 penalties for 92 yards during the NFL's regular season. In the opening weekend, it dropped to 8.5 penalties for 60 yards per game. That was something quite notable last night, that there just weren't that many stoppages in play with the flags. And it just provided a much, better viewing experience for, I think, everybody involved, except for the Buccaneers fans. Must have been miserable.
Man, when we got that first holding call to start the game, it was like, oh, this might be a good night, boys.
Rejoice!
Yeah.
What is his name? Craig Rolstad?
Yeah.
Craig? Did I nail
Craig,
that?
yeah, you did. You got it
Craig.
right.
Yes.
Yes,
Nice
Greg.
work, Craig.
Yeah.
Shout out.
You got a holding and you got a roughing call.
Yeah, that was pretty dang special. 469 says they were listening this morning as well. Big time Tolo. I thought Micah brought the wood as well, not Dan Quinn, so it wasn't just me.
Well, he did bring the wood.
469.
For
He
sure.
brought the wood. He brought the wood,
he
but
brought
I thought he brought the bats.
He did, man. It was quite a defensive performance, a historic one indeed.